Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. On Fridays, we talk about the product owner role in Scrum. We talk about patterns and anti-patterns that relate to ours and the team's collaboration with the product owner. And we've also put together a course to help you navigate that relationship. There's 18 modules, nearly 8 hours of tools, techniques, videos, handouts, presentations you can use to help you and your team work better with your product owner. The course is available at bit.ly/coach-your-PO. All lowercase, all one word. That's bit.ly/coach-your-PO. And now, on to the show, the Product Owner Show. Hello everybody, welcome to one more Friday and Product Owner episode this week with Ademar Perez. Hi Ademar, welcome back.
Hey Vasco, how are you?
Great, thank you for asking. Today is the TGIF episode where we dive into great product owners. But before we dive into that, we do want to hear a horror story of what might have been potentially the worst product owner anti-pattern you've had to work with in your career. So Ademar, share that story with us.
Yeah, absolutely, Vasco. I think I've ran into more bad POs than good POs in my career. So I guess I'll just single-handedly pick one of those stories. And this is one that kind of bridges across some of the other bad stories as well. So what I seen as an anti-pattern with a product owner at one point is when you have a high-performing team that's doing well. The engineering team builds software with quality, but the PO is influencing the team to just build features, ship, just ship the next feature. And then once that's done, move over to the next feature and ship it. And sort of like shipping into production is defined as success. And maybe this is an organizational problem, but I've seen this challenge being reflected in the way that a PO shows up, where they're just influencing the team to ship things without defining what those outcomes are. And when I talk about outcomes, I talk about changes in your customer's behavior. Or so like after shipping that thing that you just did, what was the impact on your customer? What was the impact on the market? What was the impact on the business? And those conversations, those questions have often been left out of the equation in the past. And I see that as a not a very good pattern for a PO to take their team on.
Absolutely. So how does that look like in practice, though? You were talking about the PO that defines shipping as the success criteria, that asks teams to deliver more features, but does not define what the outcome should be. Like, how does that look like in practice? As a Scrum Master, what do you see when that is happening?
Yeah, you sort of you jump into a sprint planning session, and there's very little discussion about what the product goal can look like, but more of a discussion around, hey, this is our team's velocity, or this is how much we can do. Could we ship this thing here, this feature in the next sprint or two? And what would it look like to do that? And really just there's a big focus on the PO level on the how that will be done and when that will be done, instead of focusing on the why. Why is that being done? And I think that's the question that a sprint goal really answers. Why are we doing what we're trying to do? And oftentimes I see that some teams don't drive focus on that sprint goal, because that's going to ultimately help you get to the outcome that is being mandated by that product goal or by that vision that you as a PO are being tasked to try to evangelize.
Absolutely. I like how you described it, that we're talking more about velocity, about what can be done. There's no discussion about what the product goal is. Of course, I'm sure there's also very little discussion about what the outcome should be. So we just count the number of story points we can put into the sprint, and we try to maximize that instead of asking, what's the impact going to be for the customer? How's this going to affect the company's bottom line or top line or whatever it is that we're trying to optimize for? I think that's a very good call out, because the conversations we have define how effective the team can be. If we only talk about more features, that's all the team can do, more features. And I guarantee there's never going to be enough features delivered compared to what is wished. There's always going to be a longer wish list than there is time to deliver it.
Yeah, absolutely, Vasco. And when I think about coaching teams, I often try to focus on one of the agile principles, which is simplicity, the art of maximizing the amount of work you don't do. I think is super key in what we're talking about here in terms of having that lean mindset, that MVP mindset. What is the minimal viable work that the team has to do in order to achieve that why or that goal? And as I mentioned, time is finite. We don't have time to deliver all kinds of features. We have to deliver the most impactful thing. And I think that when teams focus on delivering the most impactful thing by doing the minimal amount of work to get to that thing, that to me is efficiency.
Yeah, absolutely. So because we were talking about impact, of course, now we should talk about great product owners. So Ademar, share with us the story and the details of how this great product owner you've met actually worked with the teams.
Yeah, absolutely, Vasco. There was a great product owner I worked with early in my career who was very excellent at communicating vision. So this PO would always talk about the why. Why are we building this thing that we're trying to do, and what connection does this thing have to what the business is doing and how the business is making money? And oftentimes when we're working in agile teams, it's very easy to lose track of the big picture. Because you're boggled down on trying to hit that sprint goal or trying to complete that user story or that piece of work, and you're trying to make sure that you're delivering that with quality. But as a PO, I think that the PO is there to remind the team about the big picture, and that big system level thinking where it's not just about shipping this and moving this from one environment to the other, but it's about pushing this to production in a high quality way that is, that is influencing the outcomes that we're trying to achieve on an organizational level. So a PO, I think a great PO, as I did observe back in the day, is one that is able to connect what the team is doing to that bigger vision and keeping that at the forefront throughout the process.
Absolutely. That's a great point, because the team is, as you said, very much in the weeds, right? They are in the details every day. Single line of code, single test case is what we work with, right? Developers don't actually work with features. They work with line of code changes that they need to track and they need to manage and they need to respond to. And it's actually very important for us to bring it back to reality. And the reality in the case of product development isn't actually the code. It's what the customers need. It's the impact we are creating. Right? Because without that, the code loses context, and then it becomes, a self-fulfilling prophecy of less value delivered, because we're focused on, better code, on faster performance or whatever, but we forget why that is important, which is at the end of the day, the impact we want the customer to feel, the benefit we want the customer to feel. So I really like that idea of constantly bringing the conversation back to the big picture, as you called it, which for us, of course, it means the business and the customer, because that's why we're there.
Absolutely, and really doing that in a collaborative fashion, Vasco. Not. I think a lot of POs often feel like this is all on their back. That they're ultimately accountable and responsible for, delivering on that vision. But I think that there's some key players that POs should think about leaning on, like your designer and maybe your tech lead, and finding innovative ways to discover before building something. I've been recently doing tons of exploration in the product thinking and product discovery space. And I feel like there's opportunities for POs to really extend their ability to collaborate in order to effectively achieve that vision.
Yeah, absolutely. Great points. Ademar, unfortunately, we're getting close to the end, but before we do go, do share with us, where can we find out more about you and the work that you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. LinkedIn is the best place for now. So, Ademar Perez, if you can look me up there. I usually share a lot of my thinking through this platform here, and shortly I'll be delivering a website soon with a blog.
Absolutely, and we'll definitely put the link to Ademar's LinkedIn page on the show notes, so be sure to connect and ask questions, share your insights. Why not share with Ademar what you liked the most from this week? So, Ademar, it's been a pleasure. So thank you very much for your generosity with your time and your knowledge.
Thank you, Vasco. Always a pleasure.
One more week of the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast is over, but there's a lot more we have to share. We have developed our own membership site where you find a community of active and engaged Scrum Masters. In this site, you get access to exclusive content and get to interact with us, your podcast hosts, as well as the best Scrum Masters in the world. Join us at scrummastertoolbox.com/podcast and keep this podcast free of advertising. See you next week for one more week full of Scrum Master tips and tricks. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.